welcome. We will be speaking in English, so for friends here it will be strange because we usually speak in Turkish and now I'm addressing them in English. So yes, thank you for being here, and those who came from abroad, thank you as well. We met 2 times before we do this conversation, and Dilek and Johanna and myself, we thought we would name this again a conversation. So we are facing you, but so it will be a half in between speaking to you and speaking to each other. We thought we would be as spontaneous as we can. But we, when we met, it was the opportunity to rethink about the process of the exhibition and the exhibition itself, what happened. So we had a few keywords in mind, and so I have a little paper with these keywords, and I'm in charge of the timing. So, so we thought we would really converse about the exhibition that has opened 2 months ago. So also for us, more than 3 months ago. So it's also for us an opportunity to speak from a distance and to have a view on what happened, and what happened with many actors also, because we're the 3 of us here, but there were many actors in this exhibition. Some are here among you. So we thought we would have a kind of a reflection in retrospect about that, and we thought we would divide this conversation in 3 parts. One would be speaking about collaboration, negotiation. The second part would be a bit about translation, because this exhibition is turning around language and translation and body and space. And a third part, which I keep the mystery and the surprise. So for maybe I start introducing the person on my left and the person on my right. So Dilek Winchester and Johanna Gustafsson Fürst, the 2 artists who have realized this exhibition and the protagonists of this encounter. And I am Selen Ansen, and I had the chance to curate this exhibition, so to be part of this conversation. And maybe, most of you know, but some of you maybe don't. I assume you all have seen the exhibition and experienced the exhibition, but maybe we could start talking about the premises of this exhibition, where and when it started and how it started, because it started from a distance between these 2 artists. Would you like to start, maybe? Because I wasn't there. I wasn't born when that happened. When these 2 got together, I wasn't born. And so maybe it's best that you talk about it a bit.
Okay. Well, during the pandemic, we were asked by Mike Boat to do a talk. He was like the matchmaker in some sense, I suppose. And then he also invited Glenn Pierce as the moderator for our talk. And then we started meeting up online to talk about our talk. And then we got on really well. I think Mike had a really good sense of both our work. Because it's kind of odd, because we deal with the similar subjects, but the result is so different than each other. So I guess so it was like this. So we had a lot to talk about, and we had a lot of like reading suggestions also. So it was like it started quite quickly and quite deeply, and then we did do the talk. And after that, we needed an excuse to continue the dialogue in some sense, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. I think also, I mean, now in retrospect, you can also start to see good things that happened during the pandemic. I mean, things that were good also happened. And for example, this thing was that it made us have a lot of time because we could meet. We started to meet, we decided to meet 2 times, but then it became 5 or 6. So I think this time thing also made us getting to know each other more in a deep sense. Otherwise, these talks are quite quick. You meet, you just have the questions, and then the efficiency was in a way gone. So I think then we wanted to hang around more. And then Mike, I think you just went to Selen and just say you should work together.
Yeah, so maybe I should specify for those who don't know Mike, to whom we're referring so often. He is here among us here, Mike Bode. So you are the cultural attaché of the Swedish consulate, and together with us, the Jordanur, Mike's assistant. One day, a bright, shiny day, we got this fantastic duo coming visiting us at Artar, and they wanted to meet us to propose a project. So you came, and Mike said, we had this encounter during the pandemic, and it was between these 2 artists who live at a distance from each other. Not only, so there's the pandemic, but also there are 2 separate countries, and these 2 artists don't know each other. They didn't know their respective practices, and this encounter online happened to be, they really met and enjoyed each other, and they realized they had things in common together with their differences. I think that's something important that we will talk about later on. And we thought it would be nice maybe that this conversation gains a body through an exhibition maybe. And it's the first time we get such an invitation, just such an offer. And, we can be very picky, but this time the 3 of us, that was Meli Felili and Emre Baykal here present, and we said, oh yeah, we like the idea. I have to confess, I didn't know the work of Johanna before Mike, so that's my shame. Before Mike presented, I knew Dilek's works and oeuvre and approach before. So we said, in principle, we would be so happy to do this. And then, the matchmaker succeeded, and we went on with this adventure all together. And I think that was also, this distance thing is important because, as Johanna and Dilek, you said, it seems quite far for me, speaking subjectively, this pandemic thing. But I think that I still feel that in our lives there's the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic, and that really there has been a great impact that is far more important than, we had to wear masks, the body distancing themselves, etc. But I think it had a great impact on our perception of distance and time. And I think this impact had an impact also on our process and exhibition. So it is a term we have discussed about, the collaboration thing. Before, when we prepared this conversation, we said, should we talk about collaboration or not? And we were not all sure about that. This term collaboration can be very problematic. But I will just use it for me, and I will say as a curator also, that was a very, very interesting experience in terms of that, because I also felt I was part of that so-called collaboration at a distance as well, and that we didn't try, this is my vision of it, we didn't try to erase the distance. I think we enhanced it in many ways, and that the relationship of both, this is my lecture, and it only implies me, but the way also I see how these two practices united in translation, both Dilek's and Johanna's works, you include distance in your works for me. You don't try to erase and to do as if that didn't exist. Distance and difference became fully part of this project, I think.
I think maybe it's good to say also that, I mean, we did resist both the word collaboration, because collaboration implies that you actually do things together. You always agree on everything. But here we kind of were very precise that the differences must have space, but also we do not want a separation. So there's a big difference between difference and separation that was important for us to enhance. And also we added the word negotiation, but negotiation is also not a good concept, because negotiation implies that we will kind of end in an agreement. And we also decided that we will also make space for disagreement. And since we are both very occupied by language, this idea of disagreement and difference is, of course, at the core of our interest. So we needed to kind of play beside, in a way, like kids do, not collaborate or not negotiate. So it's neither a collaboration and it's neither a negotiation, I would say. But this, I mean, we felt that it was important to emphasize this, because this space of difference was actually, you know, in retrospect, you sound so smart, but what we aimed for. We didn't know we aimed for it, but now I can see this was maybe what we wanted.
I have to say, when the project was brought to us by Mike, it was very, I was very enthusiastic, but I said, how the hell these two artist works are gonna come together in one common space? Because they're so different. And I think maybe also you would like to comment on that, Dilek, but that what just Johanna said, this no wall decision, I just want to make sure all of you have seen the exhibition. Madam, you have, okay. So this no wall decision was a decision. So the two of them, they had agreed before, and they just said, during one meeting, so we have something to tell you. There won't be any walls. And I was like, okay, which is quite challenging, as you might maybe imagine, because Dilek's one of the work series by Dilek, which is displayed in the exhibition, is a video series, and the sound with sound, and of course the immediate, curatorial. I don't know.
Impulse.
What impulse you would have would, to just build a room and you put the video inside another room and you're safe with that. And no, so that was, and we played the game. And I have to say, it was, in a way, there were two decisions. One was not to make walls, so not to separate with architectural elements the different works. I will speak of works, not of the artist's works, but the different works in the exhibition should not be separated by architectural elements. And the other decision that you took in common was to enhance gravity, to welcome gravity in the space. So the space is very high. It's one of the highest galleries in the Art building. And I have to admit, my first proposition was, especially for Johanna, would you like a bit to elevate the sculptures? They look a bit, they are a bit tall. And, in a very kind way, you said, yeah, let me think about it. And then the second or third meeting said, no, let's leave them on the floor. So, in these decisions that were, I think from the very start, quite from the very start, actually helped a lot. It's like, you have a frame, and then you play within the frame. And you can also transgress, but you know what you're transgressing. I don't know how you felt about that. Especially you, because the sound, your works have sound. Some of your works have sound. And also the videos, they need darkness as well. They need a different light. So that negotiation was also for you quite important, I think, in terms of the works.
I did found it really difficult because it's against the nature of the medium that I was using to have no walls or no partitions, nothing. I did find it difficult, but it was quite a good challenge, I think. But I do remember, like, in the earlier visit, I think in your first visit, Johanna, it was like we were looking, the space is really interesting because you have these, like, two windows overlooking at the space. So it feels like a swimming pool to me. So it almost like kind of will jump in something. But when we were looking at the space from above, we were thinking like we could kind of imagine it as a landscape. So you have these sort of layers, and then as you go down and you walk between, the layers unfold. That was like one of the earliest conversations that we had on site. And I think although we didn't in the end use that window to look down at the exhibition, but still I think we kept that sense. So it's something that I quite like, that it does work really well as a landscape, I think. So from a distance, you see the whole almost, or even when you're entering, there's a promise of that landscape because the sound sort of gets you. And then you move in the space, and then exactly like it's like all these different layers unfold onto sort of separate parts, but then somehow magically the works that you wouldn't necessarily want to put together works amazingly well. So that's still something that surprises me. And Johanna, you always were like really careful with the gravity. So you were kind of going around saying like, we need gravity. I was like really impressed with the volume of the space. So I think I did kind of manage to create these sort of volumes within the bigger volume with sound. And I do appreciate, like, sound is just so dominant. And I do appreciate that in the first few conversations you were saying like, I like sound. You can be sort of, you can go for it. You don't have to sort of worry about it. My work works good with sound. I remember these sort of sentence that you said, and that sort of gave me the permission to go out there and grab that volume in terms of sound. So I think although we don't have walls, we do have we don't have compartments of such, but we do have we did manage to define volumes within the bigger volume in the space. And also one of the most exciting things for me was the height of the space. That really thrilled me, I must say. I didn't have a chance to work exhibit in a space like that before, so I wanted to use that height, and so that's how the text piece came. That's how we included the text piece,
which is an older piece by you, right? You mean the
long
stuttering piece?
Words, that one. And then it's like I went over the top at one point and then calmed down through the conversations. But that piece sort of we decided to include as a reaction to the height of the space to start with, and then it just worked quite well with the rest. But I think like we can. I mean, this question with the working against the nature of the medium. And still kind of pursuing this no walls statement till the very end. That was extremely challenging, but I really enjoyed sort of doing the puzzle.
Because, of course, the no walls also concerns your whole series, because also the 3 videos are not distinguished in space. So the sounds kind of resonate with each other, not only they bounce on your sculpture, but they also, the sound from one video start resonating with the other. And so we are always, I feel, on the fringe of cacophony. We're like flirting with it. And now, for instance, today I was, when I was in the building, I just realized that we hear the sound of your video. When we're working with you, we hear it in other levels of the building, and to be able to have that, I think, is very precious. Like, to be, for me, the preciousness of this exhibition was to allow for difference, for noise, for dissonance.
Yes,
kind of happen.
Yes, and I think that is one thing that I kind of think we realized quite early, that perfection is not where we go. I mean, there will be, I mean, of course, Dilek needed a more darker space. I needed a little bit of lighter space, you know. We knew that there will be problems, but also, I think embracing this imperfection and trust that this also has to do with language. We always know that we are not precise. Language is always, I mean, we talk about translation between one, a text to another language, but I'm also translating things now when I speak, and it's always not right. So it's always not right to embrace that in a duo exhibition and let that become, real. I think to trust that and not go for precise perfection was a decision we made quite early, and to understand that that will gain something we don't know about, but it is also something that is in a way true to our deep love and interest that we share. And I also want to say something about gravity and sound, because I think, of course, I think what we really wanted to do is kind of, that I can see is coming, is to really recharge language. And recharging is to kind of put in a body in the language, and then pointing to gravity via sculpture and especially sound, I would say, is 2 mediums that really goes to the body. Even though sound is, we don't see the sound, but it is really something that meets the body in a way that is very similar to the sculpture.
I have to say, the gravity, I hadn't thought, as I said, I suggested to elevate your sculptures.
Yes, but to your defense, you had never seen my works in space. When you said that, when you changed, when you saw it in the studio.
Yeah. They're very convincing, I have to say, the 2 of them. Johanna is telling you that, we accepted not to be precise. You are so, guys, precise, the 2 of you. Very precise and very, it's great, because it's really, I think what amazes me as, when I think of you 2, singularly, is that you are very precise, but you leave a certain amount of improvisation and openness to what may come and disturb your thinking, which is quite rare. But the gravity, which I was not into in the first moment, very strangely, because I'm obsessed with falling, and I did an exhibition about falling. It's like my little obsession there, one of the many. And then suddenly it struck me, this is also how it's fueled in the conceptual frame, is that, of course, it's Babel, the Tower of Babel. And it's about the language, on a conceptual, but on a conceptual level, this conceptual level was totally embodied when we started letting the gravity happen and become visible with the works, that, this language is a constant fall, and your work, that we fall into language, we learn. We learn, and as soon as we learn to not be able to agree. And as soon as we learn, comes the necessity for translation, then comes the misunderstanding, then comes poetry, then comes conflict, then comes violence, the good and the bad. And so that was very important. And the whole translation also came from there, and maybe then I could do the smooth transition towards the second part, which would be the translation, which would be violence. I think it would be nice to talk about this violence that we welcome, because there was a lot of openness and hospitality, not speaking of, as an institution welcoming artists, not at all. The relationship and the way you two welcomed your reciprocal works. I think it's the first time really I work with artists who are so concerned by the other artists' works. It's the first time I see that you were so concerned by, how your work would affect the work of the other. I was dreaming of fights. It never happened. These two never fought, but they disagreed, which is very important. But on a conceptual level, both of your works deal with language and deal with violence. The violence that comes with language, and that the violence that is engendered also by language, and the violence that of the society we live in, and the times we live in. And this, you did it within this hospitality and openness to each other. So that was for me very... Would you like to say a few things about that? Do you want to go?
I think I appreciated the process. So so all these sort of gestures to step back and make space for each other, that kind of worked, I think. I think there is this trust in the process, probably trust in the dialogue. But then I think the most important thing is that we had a lot of time. Usually there isn't that much time. So we started early, and we had lots of time to appreciate each other's work. Maybe that sort of in group exhibitions or so, that appreciation needs time, and sometimes you just don't have that time to do that, I suppose. So I think the process is quite vital here.
Vital.
I also think, when the first conversation we had that was organized by the Swedish Research Institute in Istanbul and the Swedish Consulate, we named the conversation "Grafting for a Hope for We," and the word grafting, the concept of grafting came from a previous work of mine, and the concept of "we" came from an artist book you did. And this combining a grafting, which is a violent gesture in terms of, you cut into a tree and you put something in, but it's also making a new we. This combination of starting from an idea of violent, but also gaining for a we, was of course affecting, the works you do. If is of course affecting the collaborations you do. It has to kind of go hand in hand. So I think this we thing was very present in the work. And I just want to come back to the translation thing, because I also think, I mean, we are very occupied by the by translation, since that is like in the core of language. But I think it's interesting to think that we work very different with different translations and from different starting points. I mean, I've been very much occupied by political lies and the language capacity to create horrible lies, but also that capacity is the same that creates fiction and fantasies and imagination. And I think it's good for the audience to know a little bit more about your translation position too, because these two ways in for us is juxtaposing each other, and it's also grasping a bigger field that I think is interesting.
I think mine kind of deals with the ideological barrier of some sort, because like when I first started working on the project, like this, for those who don't know the background, Divan literature is kind of simply taught at schools, but it is this literature was produced in Ottoman script, which we can't use, we can't read at the moment, so there is a disruption that is caused by alphabet reform and language reform. But I think for me the real interesting question is how you deal with that disruption. So there is a ideological barrier there. Like when I first started working on the project, like my like the close circle, people were asking like, but why are you doing this? What is the point? I mean, why would you want to look at Divan literature? Surely, I mean, it's okay, but like, why are you curious, and what are you going to do with that and stuff? So that's like, I had to sort of ignore that, shrug my shoulder, just turn the other way around, and then sort of continue with the project. I think this is what I do with this project is that I claim space for a reader who's not an expert, who's not an academic, who just sort of reads for pleasure and who's curious. So I fit in that description myself, but I just wanted to open that space for this kind of readership in a way. And it's like the curiosity is the thing that sort of triggered the whole project. I think this the disruption that's caused by the change of script leaves a mark in the collective memory. So actually the work deals with that in a way, but how you fill in the gaps is important, because the continuity and a sense of belonging is quite at the heart of the matter, I think. If you leave that, how can I say? There should be like, that space should be claimed more by the average reader rather than official canons or so. So that's my more or less kind of main problem. But with the work itself, what I did was like a form of translation that I deconstructed fragments of poems. Then we worked as a team on different layers, and then we reorchestrated those layers to make it whole again. I think that's the process. That's how I would say it. So there are all these like different strategies of translating there, but at the very heart of it, it is I try to claim the space for an average reader who's just curious, who's just interested.
But I mean, it's very interesting to think about the translation process as a process that makes something whole.
A
It's
loss.
not a loss. So I think this move, instead of thinking about translation as moving from one point to another, you do a gesture that makes something whole, that creates a space, which is, for me, like a very interesting way to think about translation that makes me kind of be more interested in that processes. And I think that taught me to understand that since I haven't been thinking about my work as a process of translation, more, as I said, a charging, but also more a way to kind of make something visible, to make something become seen that is unseen, which is also, of course, another way to translate.
You had, when we met to prepare this talk, you said that something that I think both we were very, said, oh, that's an interesting idea, like a translation backwards, like the idea, and I think that's quite central. The point was not in this, let's call it an exhibition, but also during the process that led to this exhibition. I see it in this way, I don't know if you would agree, but I would say that the point was not to find the intersections between you two. So the point was not, at least for me, to focus on the crossroads between your practices. That was a starting point, maybe, that language, but language is such a vast theme. Language concerns us, so all of us. So it's a crossroad between all of us. It's the point where we connect, where we touch each other, even from a distance. But it's also the point where we separate from each other, where we distinguish. But the point was not that for me, to find. So of course there was the Kurzschwitters, that these two artists, I have to give you a hint, secret. Johanna and Dilek share in common a common, how could you say, love. Let's call it love for the März artist, the founder and only member of the März movement, Kurt Schwitters, who himself was very much concerned by language and by translation, and who was a German artist living in times of the Second World War, and who had to be in exile, and who was a refugee in Great Britain, but also Norway, if I'm not mistaken, and who had really to deal with translation in his own life, like as a form of survival. So you two discovered, when I wasn't born, during the talk they had, that they had this common love for this artist dead, a phantom, was bringing you together. But during this the process, yes, the whole point was not to find forms or themes where you would agree. Rather, to start from there and start also welcoming the disagreement. But you had this comment that I found very interesting, because you said, it's like translating backwards. What does it mean, backward? It's this, this notion that translation, Walter Benjamin would say that, but many others, but Walter Benjamin is maybe the most, when you speak of translation, you have to speak about Walter Benjamin, a bit of Derrida, whom we haven't talked about. But the translation is a loss and a gain. That it's, you always sacrifice something in translation. So you can gain poetry, you can lose meaning, but it's both. It's not either or. It's No, sorry, it's not or, it's and. Yes, it's not either or, it's and. And so I think one of the points of departure, and it's something you pointed, and I think that was very relevant, that it was the loss. That we started with the loss, also the gaps that you were talking about, and this disconnection, this gap, this loss in the contemporary Turkish culture regarding a past that you cannot access, that you cannot read, so it is confiscated from you somehow. It becomes then something very elite. Only the elites can access it. You have to learn an alphabet. You have to learn a language that is a dead language, that is not spoken in order to access something. So there is a loss somewhere. There is a gap. And you start with the gap. And you also start with another gap. And it's like, this going backwards was very interesting because it had no destination also. It was like, I think, a journey without a destination. There was no point of arrival that we were heading, if not having an exhibition. And maybe that would be the third part. I'm really like, good. Which, again, speaking of that, you said something that was very inspiring for us, the two of us. You said, we landed in difference. So we thought, and maybe that would be the part where if you have any questions, maybe this can turn into a dialogue with all of you. That on this gravity, that we have a plane on which the works are, and also your work, Dilek, where the video works, where you have the floor, and you need the floor for these steps and for the sound to come. But so there's a plane where we landed, and I really like what you said, that we landed in difference. And I think that makes the particularity of this exhibition, that yes, these works share a common space. There is something unifying them. There's a common ceiling and a common floor. And yet there is something different that's in between them that we cannot resolve. It's we landed in that. I don't know if you could feel it. Would you comment on that, or we go on with the questions as you wish?
I just have one thing that I want to say. I mean, it's not on the line of in landing in difference, but maybe it is also, because my first perception of the space was that it was an upside down space, The gravity of the space is up in the ceiling. It's a very white and light ceiling, and it's very high. So you have a feeling when you enter the space, when I did that the first time, that it was upside down, that there was no real gravity, that you kind of were sucked up in the roof, which was very annoying. And of course your first impulse is to kind of, we need to, throw a rope into the ceiling and just drag it down. But I think this whole process that we are going through of kind of turning it right or turning it upside down again. We're talking about gravity, of course, but to kind of turn something that is wrong upside down to become a space where you actually can walk. For me, that is also something that I think we need to do. I'm of course speaking in metaphors now, space metaphors, because I think this, what we kind of have been talking about, that has been very present through the time, is also a lot of political changes that has been both here in Turkey and in Sweden, and we have been kind of reporting all the time of these changes, and also about how language is used and misused to kind of emphasize these changes that we kind of agree that we oppose. So this kind of wanting to turn something right, the floor to become a floor, to actually make something that feels at least graspable and truth and real has for me been a very important part. So even though we said that we will land in the difference between us, I just wanted to oppose that and say we actually turned together a space right.
Mm.
Yeah. So now I was destroying our plan here.
Oh no, I'm so happy. It's been going like this, the whole thing. No, it's no, it's in the plan. It's the political thing was in the plan. No, a joke apart. Yes, I think it's, an exhibition is always, of course, flirting with life all the time. Life is not something apart, but this is a project where I think the contact was very high, on a high level, like what you said. First, the timing, the pandemic, yes. But also, yes, what our countries, and other countries, of course, but our countries have been and are still dealing with. This was very much present historically in the works, but also in our lives, and it still is. And yes, it felt, that you could put your feet and have a ground for that. So yes, I fully agree. You didn't ruin my plans. Not even. Should we ask if you have any questions? And if you do, Ada has a microphone.
My name's Mike Bode. I'm the guilty partner that was referred to at the beginning.
It's Mike!
And I'd just like to acknowledge Olof and the Swedish Research Institute that made this project possible as well and played an important role. Also, Glenn Pierce was a contact from the Research Institute. And from the outset, when we were doing the conversations during the pandemic, it was very much about sharing knowledge. And that kind of evolved into an exhibition at Arta. So I was kind of intrigued to ask you all three about making an exhibition as a research format, because this is, any exhibition is research, of course, but here we started with something that wasn't an exhibition, that evolved into an exhibition, and in a way, you've had the time and the framing through the pandemic and through this long period to actually get to know each other. Johanna's come and done several research trips here.
Yes.
And so from the outside, I see this very much the result. It's like a report from the exhibition is kind of a research process, and it would be interesting to hear if you have found something in this process that is useful to you artistically or is different. It would just be interesting to hear about that.
Dilek, we're all turning to you.
I think what is quite striking for me is that we had time to kind of fantasize about an exhibition, and then we had time to test out all these things that didn't necessarily work. And we had, I think it's like, we had time to just enjoy the whole process and time to have long talks about each step. That's, and also that sort of that determined how my installation turned out in a way, because when I first started, if we didn't have the dialogue, if we didn't have this sort of extended time, I would have gone for a 6-channel video or some crazy thing that I was planning when I first started.
Really?
But I think we did influence each other in a major way, I think. So that dialogue really did make a difference in how, well, my work turned out. I should say that on my part. And it was a very enjoyable process. And I think that's the thing, we tend to forget to enjoy the process, I think. And it just sort of makes me think, oh, this is actually why I do this.
Yeah, I think I will just follow you on the process thing. For me, real research is process. And in these times of projectification and goal-driven production modes, this idea of a real research that is completely in process and you don't know where we will land. I think for me to kind of really continue to emphasize that this is the way I want to work. This is exactly how I want it to be. I really don't enjoy exhibitions that are this kind of project or product display. I really think exhibition making should always be part of the process of being an artist, of being thinking, and the exhibition is more like a contraction, and then we go on. So I think this is, I learned a lot of things, Mike. Of course, it's been 2 or almost 3 years. But what I really can, claim after this is that this is the way I think we should do it. Long time not knowing the end result.
A bit stressful on my side. I have a different perspective on that. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. For me, it was very precious in the sense that first I said I didn't know Johanna's practice. I didn't know Johanna. I didn't know you as an artist before. And I said I knew Dilek. But I don't feel I knew Dilek. I knew Dilek. I've seen exhibitions by Dilek, and I was an admirer of her work. And we had met once on the island, when you lived on the island. But it's a weird thing. I said, these Swedish people are coming, and they are the ones who enable me to meet with an artist. This is my job. I'm a curator. Dilek is an artist, so it's my job to meet with artists, and I will be meeting an artist from the country where I am working through by means thanks to a person from another country, Sweden, where I had never been. So that was first, I think, what you did, both of you, and the Swedish consulate and the Swedish as an institution. Swedish Research Institute is very precious in times. I'm not going to be sentimental about it, but I will be a bit. Yesterday we had another conversation. I was thinking, our words are a bit shrinking, I feel. In the sense that, yes, during the pandemic, we have now these digital meetings, we can meet, with people, we can do exhibitions without the artists. We have done this during the pandemic. They don't need to be physically here. We can do it iPad, we can do Zoom. Yes, we can, but it's not the same, I feel. So there was a physicality of the encounter that you enabled. I could go to Sweden, thanks to Jaspis. They should be also thanked. And I could really encounter an artist from the geography I'm working in, and I could go to Sweden. And I could go to Sweden is important for me because it's a country and a geography I didn't know, and you have different skies, you have a different light. And it was also an encounter that for me was like enabled me to resist to that shrinking that I feel, you know, the shrinking of horizons, the shrinking of imagination, the politics are the same, Europe is becoming brown, slowly and slowly, same discourses. Also in art, we start to see the same things, you know, and then you have something else that was offered by you. So that's very precious, I think. I think it confirmed me that the physicality is very important. So, and I'm very sorry that you're leaving. But that was fantastic. So thank you.
We also had a question here. Yeah. No, I didn't mean like that.
So Ada first.
You run up and down.
You run.
Yeah, thank you all for this interesting talk. And you've been talking a lot about the process, and you've also been talking about translation as something that came from a loss, perhaps. And you've been talking about mirroring the space, but I'm also thinking about the exhibition that I saw today, and as a place with your respective different work. And then I started to think about the artworks as how they are capacitating time, perhaps, because I think that that the works, I want to hear your comments about how time and timing, I mean, the mediums are different, but they are there in the space, so it's also not different, it is shared. Could you comment on that?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to start?
You go ahead.
Yeah.
It's a good question, I think.
Yeah. That's many answers to that. Thank you. I think there's different times in terms of my work. There's different times. It's the present time when you meet the work as an audience. You are there in presence and you walk around. So you create a kind of time frame, how you move with the works. But this time with this specific work, I also have been very occupied by kind of building in time in the actual work, actually as a visual, processual gesture, that the marks that are on the surface and that they are crafted. There was a review that was very occupied with gnawing, that my works are gnawed. And I think this time, I mean, I generally don't want to kind of brag about this sculpture took so long time to do, because I think it's a value system that it's irrelevant in general. But this time built into the actual physicality, the surface, the work, was important. Responding to your question.
I think hearing the sound is one thing. It's directly to do with the time, and it even marks it, for sure. But I think one thing that we didn't talk about is like the texture in Johanna's work. That is to me, that is as present as, almost as present as the sound, because it sort of matches the experience in a way. So how you experience the sculptures. There are all these different textures, and how you go around the form as well. That is a certain sort of that marks a time. But I think the experience is sort of measured by the textured surfaces as well. There's something about it. And also, I think with the work that the one, I can't remember the title, the letters and then the craft people's response to the letters. So those letters sort of expands the time in a different way, maybe outside of the exhibition space. So I think text can do that in a really amazing way. So that takes you and sort of outside of the exhibition space and an intimate sort of narrator's voice. So that's like another diverse timeline there that goes beyond the exhibition.
Well, I mean, we are on time, so I'm not going to take too much time. It was just like, I just wanted to add also to earlier what Mike said also about, I'm from the Swedish Research Institute, and so we definitely shouldn't take too much honor for this. It's been, on the contrary, it's been a great honor to follow it. It's more a little bit on the sideline, I would say. Again, we are a research institute, but to what you said earlier about the Swedish dimension, actually, if there was something I think I should add here. First of all, my predecessor, Ingela Nilsson, was vital in bringing Glenn Pierce on board of this. And I also don't think it's a coincidence that both Ingela and I are actually Byzantinists. Sometimes when I made my PhD studies in Byzantine history, I used to joke and said that I'm doing a PhD in Dadaism because it is almost incomprehensible what it really is, and you are stuck all the time with fragments. So sometimes when you come from fields like philology, you're used that you're stuck with enormous amounts of literature that are easily readable, you know the contexts, you can easily place them in a larger picture. As a Byzantinist, you're always stuck with fragments. There are inscriptions there are a little scrap of text there. Sometimes it's very difficult to reconstruct it. And you also, as a scholar, you're also frustrated by efforts to do it because, you know, academics are a little bit like paranoics. They really want there to be meanings and everything. So I think it was a great experience as a researcher to see how, in many ways, an exhibition like yours has been, it is opening fields that where researchers really cannot reach. I should add also that in the autumn, Ingela's own project did a smaller exhibition at the Depot Gallery, which was called Translating Worlds, in which they were also, but in a different way, but they were also toying with, in that case, with how stories travel between different worlds. So for me, it's been a great honor to follow this on the sideline and see how, you know, new worlds are opening up, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Time for dinner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope we haven't been too long. Thank you.